going to be using in class. Now, one thing that they might ask you to do is that on the simulator, they might ask you to put some air in. You can pick it up, you can pump down, and that puts some air in. Now this little guy here will move to adjust the volume and things like that. But anyway, you're going to mess around. You're going to answer the questions that it gives you. It gives you a few questions to answer. But then there's a place where they want you to collect some data and make a graph. And so what you're going to do to collect the data is you're going to want to reset this. So hit the reset button. Okay? And now it's going to tell you that it wants you to put in like 100 heavy species. So you'll click 100 on that. Oops, that's 1,000. And then you'll end up, especially if you're doing like a let's say the Charles one where you got to do volume and temperature. You'll click 100 and you'll put 100 in there. And anyway, the particles will start bouncing around in there. And when you're doing the Charles one, you want to have the pressure constant. Now, if you're doing Gay-Lussac's, you're going to want the volume constant. And if you were doing Boyle's, you would want the temperature constant. So you'll click the constant parameter right here. Now, when doing this, to start off with, you want to make sure this pressure doesn't max out, or the volume doesn't max out. So if you're doing like let's say Charles, where you're doing volume temperature, you want to make sure you have the pressure selected to be constant, but you want to start this about as cool as you can get it. And so what you'll do is you'll start with it, no, not as cool as you can get it, but down so the volume shrinks down a little bit. Because what you don't want it to do is you don't want the volume to expand all the way over here against the wall and not be able to move when you change the temperature. So down here is the heat control. You can start off pretty cold. All right, you can see it's at 28K. Now to measure the volume, you're going to have to select the tools. So it will probably look like this. It will probably say measurement tool. So you click on that and you're going to want to get the ruler. Now with the ruler, it came in the right spot, but a lot of times it comes in up at the top here. You're going to want to move it, and you're going to want to line the 10 edge. I feel like it works best if you just line that up right against the edge of the cylinder right there. Now, what you're going to do is you're also going to have somebody in your group open up a Logger Pro. And so one person can run the simulator, one person can run a Logger Pro. And so on the Logger Pro, you're going to want to have some temperature and volume. And let me just erase this. This is data that I demonstrated to a different class here. Okay. But anyway, let me get rid of the data here. So, erase that. Okay. Let me erase the volume here. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is you're going to have temperature on the x-axis and volume on the right. Now when you get this, it's not going to look like that. It's going to look like, let's see here if I can make it work here. It's going to look, let's see. It's going to look just like X and Y. So you'll double click on the X. If you double click on the X, it's going to ask you what you want there. And if you're doing a Charles's law, you're going to put temperature here. Okay, the short name can just be T, and the units can be kelvins because they're going to be in kelvins. And then the Y, double click on the Y, and the Y is going to be volume if you're doing a Charles law one, and the short name will just be V, and the units just leave those blank for volume. Now what you're going to do is you're going to use the simulator to collect some data. So let's look at our simulator here. With our first data point, I'll probably just have to minimize this. So for the first data point, I have a temperature of 28K and a volume. Now we're just going to measure the volume here. So it's basically like 2.2 centimeters. Alright, so we're just going to use centimeters for the volume, even though it's not a volume measurement, but that's what we're going to use. So I'm going to put in 2.2 for my volume, and I already forgot what the temperature was, so it's 28. The temperature is 28. So I'll put that in there. Okay, now we're going to do the next one. So the next one, how you do that is you need to just heat it up a little bit. So add a little heat. That will make the temperature go up. So let it go up a little bit. So you want to make sure that this thing moves. You can see it hasn't really expanded yet. For some reason my computer is running kind of funny here. But you'll want to heat it up until the thing expands out. It's running really slow here for some reason. But anyway, this guy is going to drag this thing back and make the volume. If you heat it up, it's going to make the volume bigger. So now I see that my new temperature is 107, and then I've got about 2.2468. Okay, so 107, 2.8. So I'm going to go to my Logger Pro, and I'm going to type in that the new temperature is about 107, and my volume happens to be 2.8. Okay, now if you look online on the paper that goes with this, the handout, anyway, it's going to show that you need to collect so many data points. And one thing that's kind of bad about this simulator is this volume will kind of fluctuate a little bit. And so you got to kind of average like where it's at. So then you're going to heat it up some more. And so let's just heat it up a ways here. So let's go to 220. Now one thing, you don't want to heat it so much that it comes over here and hits the sides of the wall. You don't want to heat that. Okay, but anyway, what you would do is you would just collect the data, put it in the Logger Pro until you get enough data points. Now, eventually on Logger Pro, you're going to have several points. I only have a couple here. But what you need to do is double click on the Logger Pro, and if you click on the white space, you can hit a button that says Connect Points, and you'll hit OK. And then that will put a line between the 2 points. And then you can hit, there's a button at the top here, and I know the screen player's cutting it out, but there's an A button at the top. And if I could drag this down, you could see it, but I guess I can't move it. But there's an A button, and if you click that, that's the auto scale function, and it auto scales your graph. And so you'll want to click that as well. Alright, so those are just a couple tips on how to use the simulator and Logger Pro. That's it.